Hey, buenos dias, ¿qué pasó, amigos? John's Moto Garage. As always, welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we're here with the Grommy Grom, the beautiful Grom. And today I'm going to talk about 5 beginner tips if you're just getting into riding. Now, these aren't going to be how-to ride tips. So this is assuming you already have a motorcycle, you've already taken some type of basic course, or at least you know how to ride the motorcycle. These are tips in kind of getting your journey started, getting more comfortable on the bike, and all that kind of thing. And you got to look at it just like any other hobby, any other thing that we love doing. There's a learning curve and it's a learning journey. And no matter where you're at in the journey, you got to focus on the positive and enjoy it and have a good time. But anyway, without further preamble, let's go ahead and jump into it. Of course, if you like the content, be sure to smash the like button, subscribe. You can hit me on Instagram at John's Moto Garage. You can also check me out on Patreon. Huge shout out to the Patreon supporters. And real quick, big shout out to CIP Marion. I'll put a link below. Young YouTuber on the rise, and he hit me up, asked if I'd give him a shout out. He doesn't do moto stuff on his channel, it's game related, but I figured, dude, this is a young kid. He went out of his way to hit me up. Least I can do is throw a shout out. So if there's any gamers out there interested in that kind of stuff, feel free to check out his channel, show him some love. CIP Marion. And he was asking for some Grom content, so here you are, the Honda Grom. All right, so first thing first, get familiar with the motorcycle, and not just the basics here, which we'll get to in a moment, but just kind of get to know your motorcycle. Get familiar with everything. That way, if something ends up breaking or going missing, you're going to notice it right off the bat. You'll see that something's not quite right. And then, of course, get familiar with everything you got up here in the cockpit, your brakes, the clutch, brights, lights, horn, turn signals, all that good stuff, the kill switch, how to start it up, what you're looking at. Last thing you want to do is get into a tight situation and you don't know how to hit the horn. Or you're fumbling around for something. You're just not going to have the time to react in that case. Of course, get familiar with the rear brake, shifter, all that kind of thing. I want to see if I can do a wheelie from here all the way to the end. There, we did it. I guess that was the end of my wheelie sesh there. But yeah, tip number 1, get familiar with the motorcycle. All right, tip number 2, find a good place to practice. Empty parking lots. Neighborhoods are better than busy city streets, but ideally an empty parking lot, somewhere where you're not dealing with any traffic. You don't have to deal with the distractions. You can set up cones. You can practice starting and stopping and all that good stuff. Again, without the distractions. All right, tip number 3 is actually put in the practice. Practice everything from the basics, starting, stopping, turning, and just like actually put in the practice. Spend a lot of time on the basics. Once you think you've mastered it, keep practicing it until it really becomes second nature for you. Again, to the point where it is quite literally, you got that muscle memory and you don't have to think twice about it. I love on the Honda Grom, I love to see if I can get other bikers to do the wave, you know? Like, will they acknowledge that it's still technically a motorcycle? Tip number 4, patience. You got to be patient with yourself. Don't beat yourself up. This isn't something you're just going to figure out one day to the next. Just like everything else, it requires practice and it takes time. It definitely takes time. And I apply these same principles with learning wheelies. Now that I want to learn stoppies, I mean, anything and everything, not just with motorcycles, but you got to be patient with yourself, you know? Don't beat yourself up. The whole idea is having fun, being safe, or whatever the purpose is that you went out and picked up a motorcycle. Last thing you want to do is go out and get hurt just because you're being impatient. And then ultimately, tip numero 5, number 5, is do not, and I repeat, do not get cocky. Don't get arrogant. The second you think that you've got a dial, that you're an expert master, that's when things will most certainly go to heck. So yeah, don't get cocky and arrogant, man. Always be humble. Remember that this is a dangerous game. Respect the beast, respect the machine, respect the cars around you, and take it easy peasy, bro. Take it easy peasy. So again, just to recap, number one, get familiar and comfortable with the motorcycle. Become one with the moto. Know the moto as if the moto and you were one. Number two, find a good empty space to practice. And number three, actually put in the practice and start out practicing the fundamentals. I mean, once you have momentum, it's not hard to balance on a motorcycle. So a lot of people get going and think, oh, this is easy peasy, I got it dialed. But what they fail to remember is that's really only half the battle. Where the skill comes in is pulling high-speed maneuvers, counter steering, emergency braking, stopping, all that kind of thing. And that's what takes practice, and that's what takes time. Going in a straight line with momentum is not difficult, but it's everything else that can really get you into trouble. And then, of course, be patient with yourself. It's not going to happen overnight, you know? Take it easy. If you start to get to the point where you're just getting frustrated or whatever the case may be, just take a step back. Take a breather, you know? And then, number five, I think perhaps the most important is, dude, do not get cocky or arrogant once you think you've got it figured out. And that's going to apply to everybody forever. And there you have you guys, John's Moto Garage, 5 tips for beginner riders. How to make the journey more enjoyable, if you will. Of course, if you dig the content, like, subscribe. Hit me on Instagram at John's Moto Garage. Your support is much appreciated. And you can also support the channel through Patreon. Big shout out to the patrons. All right, step one, get the motorcycle out of the garage. Whoa.